Honorable Men Discord. Was integration the right move? Let's talk about it. So I have to be honest with all of you tuning in. I was ecstatic and eager to record this episode. When I came across this news of what Trevor Noah had to say, I said, this is the type of material that I live for. This is the type of material that I enjoy covering because it opens up serious dialogue. Yes, from time to time, I enjoy covering other things, music, but if I have an option, this is exactly what I want to cover. So let's get into it. Trevor Noah, South African born. Uh, he has, I would say, comedian. He has a comedy background, and he at one point was hosting, I believe it's Comedy Central. Matter of fact, give me one moment. Let me be clear on this. Let's talk Trevor Noah. All right, Trevor Noah. Right. South African comedian, writer, producer, political commentator, actor, and television host. All right. And I was right. So he used to host The Daily Show on Comedy Central. I just wanted to be correct with what I'm saying here. All right. Let me just tune this out and put this back. All right. So recently, I'm not even sure if it was yesterday, but I just came across it today. Trevor Noah was on a podcast, it seems, and this was reported by TMZ, so I have to give TMZ their credit. And he basically posed the question: Was integration the right move? So if you have not seen that clip, let me just get right into it. Let's go straight to it.
I found myself wondering, and this applies to America, and then maybe it'll go to other places in a different way because Finland ties in. Do you think that integration was the right move? Like, and now I'm separating two things because I know in America people are like, well, of course, I mean, there was racism and there was segregation, and I go, yeah, no, I'm separating them. Let's separate someone being oppressed and someone not being able to get a job and someone not being able to get a bank loan. Let's take all of those, the negative things away, because I'll put myself out personally and say, I think whether we're talking about gifted kids who are anomalous, let's say, to the norm, whether we are talking about, and I mean anything that does not fit into a category, I think the part of the reason Finland is able to do it is because, have you been to Finland?
It's very homogenous.
I've been to Finland. You know who's in Finland? Finnish people. That's it. That's it. And because they're all Finnish, there's an idea of like, no, we all head in the same direction. We all know what our actions mean. And that's a really powerful thing I've learned in communicating with other people. When I'm in a room with anyone where we start to tie together multiple things. So if I'm in a room with black people, already there's like an implicit trust because we know what certain actions, words, and vibes mean. And then you're in a room with another
So I have to pause it right there. And there's not that much left. I believe the lady on the panels has something to say, but I just want to stop it right there. So this has been said to be somewhat controversial by him just even posing that question. And I'm also going to get into D.L. Hughley because D.L. Hughley had some choice words to say in regard to Noah's comments, right? But here's the thing. First and foremost, I don't see any issue with having an opinion and posing a question. The purpose of a question is to get a response, whether it's from one individual, several individuals. That's the purpose of it. Now, of course, he's explaining how he feels about his own question, which he doesn't see an issue with it, right? With I guess not integrating. He doesn't see an issue with it. And here's my thought on that. Because immediately when I saw this clip, I said to myself, was integration the right move? And this is a very, very interesting topic. And by all means, I would love for all of you to state your opinion on this in the comments. So here's the thing. Keep in mind, we were enslaved as a people for a very long time, right? Then once we got our quote unquote freedom, we went through a period of segregation. So keep in mind, we were enslaved as a people, right? So all we knew was depending on the white race, right? Then we get our freedom, quote unquote freedom. I have to say quote unquote freedom. And then during that time, there was segregation. So we had our freedom, but it's like, oh, you can't drink at this water fountain. You can't go to these schools. You can't do this, right? So then we have freedom, but did we really have freedom? Because we didn't have resources or options. We didn't have the same resources as, and this is what D.L. Hughley had to say. I'm just taking a piece out of what D.L. Hughley had to say, and I'm going to cue that up in a moment. But you figure we go from being dependent, because as slaves, we were told what to do, right? So as slaves, we were told what to do, and then we are given freedom. And when a people that spent a long period of time didn't know what it was like to manage their own opinion and thoughts and actions are given freedom, and then it's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with this freedom? You find yourself still going to the oppressor for direction. And stay with me here. This is why I love, 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 love this topic. So you have a quote unquote race of free people that are used to doing what their oppressor says is right. They're not even accustomed generationally. They're not even accustomed to making their own choices or thinking that it's almost similar to yesterday's video. We're not accustomed to believing in ourselves. We're not accustomed to thinking that we're as valued as the oppressor. So now we have freedom. So his question is a very, very great question. So you got to imagine we were segregated. Like I said, couldn't drink from the same water fountain, didn't have access to the same education. So then we start to fight for integration. And it's because we wanted the same opportunity. At the core of it, it was because we wanted the same opportunity and the same resources of that of the other nationality, our oppressors, right? But then it's also because we were dependent on them. We didn't know how to function without them, right? And stay with me here. So I'm going to get to my opinion on this, right? It's I'm 50-50 on this for now, right? I'm 50-50 on this for now, but depending on who sees me in the comments, I might have something else to speak on as far as my opinion on this. But I'm 50-50 on this because I understand completely what Trevor Noah is trying to say. And I don't think he's wrong. Because hear me out now, right? He brings up Finland. We as a people constantly show that we're dependent on others. Unlike the Asian community, all right? I'm born and raised in Queens, Flushing, Queens. Asian community, they don't depend on anyone. They come here, they have a plan, they build their own banks, they support their own banks. They build their own grocery stores, they support their own grocery stores. So on and so forth. Food markets. They're frugal with their money. When they shop because, and I'm speaking on my experience as a a Queens resident, right? So yes, they do shop, but they have their priorities in order as far as their community is concerned. Same thing with the Jewish community, so on and so forth. The black community, we don't have our priorities in order. We're not even unified as the other communities that I just mentioned. We're not unified, right? So we're integrated, but we're integrated because of resources, but we're also integrated because we're dependent on someone else guiding us, whether it's the education of the schools that we felt at that time were more valuable or more, what's the word I'm looking for? More advanced than the schools that we had, the black schools, right? So I'm going to have to agree with Trevor Noah. I'm going to have to agree with Trevor Noah. And I know what he's trying. He's not saying this to be divisive. I think he's saying this because he realizes that if for nothing else, if we weren't integrated, it would force us to learn and to have to fend for ourselves. But because we spent so much years enslaved mentally and physically, we honestly never broke that cycle of depending. Our community depends too much on other people. And I'm not going to use the word oppressor in 2025, but I'll let all you viewers who are watching this make the decision on what that word should be, right? NBA. We pretty much dominate the NBA, but how many owners of our complexion are in the NBA? NFL, even worse, right? NFL, even worse. Baseball, we're in there, but I think there's a Latin base that's in baseball also. I don't know too much about the uh, the numbers as far as African Americans in baseball is concerned, but do you not see how what he's saying makes sense? We've been so dependent. A matter of fact, this is another thing I was thinking about also. The whole integration to a level has made us lazy because again, through our history, we have generational dependency on other people. As I mentioned before, the other races, the other races do not look to other people for answers. The Italians, when they came to America, they band together and they found a way. They opened up businesses. I mean, we can go on and on about, we see it. This is not something like, oh, what are you speaking on? You're not making any sense. The other nationalities came to this country, stayed focused. Many of them had just as little as we had. This is why sometimes when people from our community make it seem like we need reparations and stuff like that, this is why other nationalities don't respect us because they look at it like you're complaining, but we made a way, right? Now, that's not to say, like I said in yesterday's video about the black inventors. Yes, the system is rigged. The system is definitely rigged. We have to understand, even when we're on our best, I don't want to say, even when we're on our best behavior, when we lock down, we focus, we get educated, we find hurdles. We find hurdles to get through the same door, which is why when I say certain things in my videos about there's no more time to play around, there's no time to play around. We don't have the freedom to be chucking and jiving. But yet in our community is so broken, we continue to chuck and jive. We continue to promote ignorance. All right? The biggest trending news, oh, perfect example. My biggest video to date is the one when I speak on Meech, right? Who is Meech? In the grand scheme of things, who is Meech? Who's Big Meech? Big Meech is a drug dealer, all right? At the end of the day, he's a drug dealer, right? Highly celebrated when he returned home, up until now with the whole situation with 50 Cent, but highly celebrated. That's our community. That's a perfect example of our community. And you might say, well, your channel benefited from it. Well, it was just a trending topic. I spoke on it. I like to tackle different issues, but my point is, pay attention to how we operate. Find another community, and this is why when I brought up the fact that I came across a video a few days ago with a young African American lady who, on her platform, she said, "What is it with black people in praising ratchet behavior? Our priorities are all the way messed up." And what Trevor Noah, the point that he was making that resonated with me is that, you know what, honestly, if we did not integrate, it may have, well, we'll know, we'll never know. It's like hypothetical. It's something that we'll never know. It's like we could only assume, but it may have put us in a position where we were forced to band together like the other nationalities and figure it out. But because we were so dead set on integrating and being a part, because we felt the pressure. It was systematic pressure. All right. So I'm not going to deny that. We felt the pressure of not being able to have the same resources as our oppressor. So, we marched, we protested to get to be integrated. We were integrated, and what you're about to hear DL Hughley mention, as soon as we were integrated and we were able to go to certain schools in certain places, those students and those people pretty much left those schools that we fought so hard to get into. All right. But we're just too accustomed to depending on other people rather than figuring it out with ourselves. But before we could even get to the point of figuring it out by ourselves, we have to learn to better communicate with each other. That's another thing, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. Hopefully I don't forget. I want to finish this video with Trevor Noah, and I'm going to play what DL Hughley had to say in response. So let's get back to this video.
Already. Now, even if you shout at me, I know what your shout means. The same way an Italian knows what an Italian shout means.
Yeah.
Right? I know I'm prefacing it with a lot because
Yes.
it's a loaded question.
Yes.
But I would love to know if you think integration was the right solution, maybe, on the other side of, what
Yeah.
America, of civil rights.
Yeah. No, I don't. And I don't think it's actually that controversial when if you understand that segregation and integration weren't the only options. Like those are within those two options, it may seem like integration is the more progressive. Like of course we don't want segregation. But again, when you're being integrated into institutions, into a culture that's a supremacist culture, that's a culture that feeds off of hierarchy, that feeds off of insecurity, anxiety, why are we being integrated into that? And so part of it is to question what we're being invited.
That woman is preaching. That woman is preaching. And that was a talking point that honestly, back when Malcolm X was around, that is a talking point that the Nation of Islam was promoting. As a matter of fact, I want to say the Minister Louis Farrakhan also promoted those same sentiments. But let her continue.
To.
I found myself wondering, and this applies to America, and then maybe it'll go to other
Oops,
places in a
went
different way.
back.
Because
Let me get back to what she said. Excuse me on that. All right. Because she made a great point. Let me see where I was at.
I think part of the reason Finland is able to do it is because have you been to
moment.
Finland?
Very remote.
Finland, Finnish people. It's and in the same direction, and that's a really powerful thing with anyone with black people. Vibes mean, and then already what your shout means. The same way an Italian knows what an Italian shout means.
Yeah.
Right. I know.
One moment.
Was the right solution. America.
I guess that was it. That's what she had to say.
If you understand that segregation and integration weren't the only options. Like those are within those two options, it may
Forgive me for
seem like
going back.
integration is the more progressive. Like, of course, we don't want segregation. But again, when you're being integrated into institutions, into a culture that's a supremacist culture, that's a culture that feeds off of hierarchy, that feeds off of insecurity, anxiety, why are we being integrated
Okay, so
into
that's
that? And
that's
so
all she
part
had
of
to
it is
say.
to question.
All right, so forgive me for going back. I thought she had more to say than that, but she pretty much nailed it. All right, and like I said, before I rewinded it, is that was pretty much the sentiment of the Nation of Islam, and a lot of it divided us as a people because some of us who were from the Christian faith, we looked at that as like, no, that's not the way that God would want it, and I understand why Christians felt that way because I myself am a Christian. But hear me out on this. For the purpose of our race being able to stand on their own, religion aside, I do think that if we weren't integrated, it may have forced us to figure it out. And we're more than capable of figuring it out because yesterday's video was on black inventors, right? So we definitely are a group of talented and intelligent people. But because as a collective, we're not on the same page, there's a lot of doubt. And the doubt is was systematically instilled in us from all the things that I mentioned earlier. But let's get into D.L. Hughley and what he had to say about what Trevor Noah said.
That may be the stupidest thing I've ever. And first off, I've heard enough from South Africans this year. That's enough. I'm not gonna. Between Elon Musk and Trump, I don't need to hear about race from two dudes from South Africa. I heard enough. Black schools and HBCUs and our system exists. She could have said that virtually about every system that exists in America, from policing to banking to housing. Every single one is inundated with white supremacy. All of it. So, and the thing that I find that I resent the most is that our story always starts in the middle. HBCUs came as a result of what we couldn't have. Everywhere we live, every black neighborhood is where we were told to live. Everywhere. Even school, like they want integration some places. I bet you want it in the Super Bowl because without black people, that shit would be rugby. So it's it's an interesting conversation to have, except that I think the outcome, I mean where she lands is a bit disingenuous. This is you can't just talk about education because the only reason you get educated is to indoctrinate yourself, right, is to be involved in those other systems.
My understanding was one of the underlying reasons why it was so important to integrate schools is because black schools were grossly underfunded
and still are
but by integrating, you're creating more of a level playing field where everybody's in the same school.
It should be the
what
same.
What happened was whatever
right.
school.
It's all smoke and mirrors because it's never a level playing field because again, this is why I say we don't have any time for chucking and jiving. We don't have time for new dances on TikTok. It's never a level playing field because we literally, as black people, have to work 10 times harder. Because when you have the credentials, they still doubt you. Sometimes they over investigate you because they want to make sure it's legit because they can't believe that you did what you did, you accomplished what you accomplished. And if any of you experienced anything like this, please, by all means, share your story in the comments. But, it's smoke and mirrors. All right. The opportunity is there. I'm not going to say the opportunity isn't there because there's more opportunity now than from years past. But at the same time, again, we have to remain squeaky clean. That's another thing. That's one of the advice that I would give any young male on this channel and for females. We don't have breathing room to make the errors of other nationalities. For one, our community is not, we don't really have a community to lean on because the community is all over the place. We got our priorities messed up. I told you that with the community. Our priorities are messed up. We have communities where drug dealers who come home from doing bids are celebrated, right? I don't see publicly celebrations for the guy from the same neighborhood as the drug dealer that went to college or got his master's, I don't see a celebration. I don't see public celebrations for those type of people. But if you did a bit, you did drugs, if you were respected in the street, you had a name for yourself, people feared you, and you come home from jail, it's like, oh, he's back, the big homie's back. But if you got your master's, got a doctor's degree, it's like, oh, you were square. You was always like you talk white. It's our priorities are all the way messed up. But I don't want to digress. But yeah, the level playing field thing is no, there's no level playing field. We have to have our A game at all times, which is why I had the episode also, which I don't believe I did a great job on that episode, where I was talking about walking resume. We don't have the ability to slack. And if you really feel like you have the breathing room to slack because you're like, oh, I'm still in my 20s, I'm young, you're an old Ted. All right, I'll see you in another 10 years. Tell me how your life is playing out. All right. We don't have the leeway to slack. I don't know any other way to express that. We have to be on our A game. Never mind what another nationality is getting away with. We're not that nationality. We can't get away with it on the same level that they get away with it. That's just a fact. And if you disagree with me, hopefully you live long enough to experience it, and then you're gonna look back and you're gonna say to yourself, I remember when I watched that episode from Honorable Men Discord, and he was talking that talk. I know what I'm talking about. All right. Let me finish up with DL Hughley.
Whatever schools white kids could go to, when black kids started going there, they left and they took their resources with them. So they, in fact, became. Look at every school. Look at all the schools we go to that at one time, integration meant that we could come, and they left. Not only did they leave, they took their resources. So this notion that integration ever existed was wrong. White flight happened as soon as integration started. And with them, they took their resources. So we still, in effect, have virtually the same thing.
I remember vividly the early 60s and seeing, people getting beaten over the heads with batons. I remember Mississippi and Alabama, where they wouldn't let black kids into schools. It's better today. There's still racism, but it has gotten better over the years.
That is undeniable. But we try to put someone. Ruby Bridges, who integrated schools in Alabama, Louisiana, is still alive. She's 71. She's still alive. So what
I remember that
tends
photo.
to do is act like it's so long ago. Yes, they don't wear hoods and maybe they don't do the things that they did before. But some of it is still so entrenched, so some is so insidious that I think that people. This is my honest assessment of it. I don't think most white people agree with the motives of white supremacists and white nationalists. I don't think they like their words, but I think they agree with their goals, which is to keep white people in charge. I think that they don't agree with their motives. They don't might not agree with their terminology or their verbiage, but they most certainly agree that white people should be in charge. That may be the stupidest thing I've.
He just preached on the end. You're gonna find white people that don't agree with some parts of that, but they definitely agree when it comes to being in charge. And they may not outwardly say it, but they'll show it in action. All right? They'll show it in action. But when I first heard this clip from D.L. Hughley, it kind of sounded like he pretty much was agreeing. I don't know if he realized it. It seems like he was agreeing with Trevor Noah's stance, because he's pointing out that it's pretty much a failed system. Integration is a failed system. That's what I took from what D.L. Hughley had to say just now. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But at the end of the day, I think it's a great topic. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The media loves throwing out words, controversial. Trevor Noah said controversial. But are we not allowed to ask questions? It's crazy. We pick and choose when freedom of speech is accepted. But the moment we use it, all of a sudden it's controversial. Like, someone can't have an opinion. All right? We're not all going to agree. But I like the fact that Trevor Noah, it took a comedian, and these are both comedians, okay? Both intelligent comedians. And that's one thing. Don't ever sleep on comedians as far as their intelligence, because there's some extremely intelligent comedians that behind their comedy, they speak a lot of truth. Chris Rock is one of them. All right. Dave Chappelle is one of them. D.L. Hughley is one of them. Trevor Noah is one of them. D.L. Hughley, I believe, is also an author because I believe he put a book out. I don't know if he has a book or two, but you know, they're both very intelligent, and I just love this type of back and forth banter, and this is what it's about. But yeah, I like I said, for the purpose, I feel like let me just close with this. I feel like integration wasn't the best option in terms of the fact that we're still dependent. Had we not integrated, would we have been at this present time now in 2025? Would we be further back because of no integration? Maybe, maybe not, or maybe we would have figured it out and we would have stepped up. We would have been owning more property. We would have had more black banks. We would have had more black schools. We would have, first of all, been moving as a community because we had to. It would be a necessity for us to move as a community. Hopefully we would have gotten our stuff together. But because of integration, I feel like the downfall of integration in terms of how we move as a community is that we're still dependent. Every time you turn around, there's someone saying what we're not getting from someone. Oh, we're not getting this from the government. We're not getting this from here. We're still dependent as a people. Still dependent as a people. As I mentioned before, I know firsthand from living in Flushing, Queens, the Asian community, they operate as a community, support each other. They'll come in as soon as a business closes, they'll open up a business and they support their business. They don't care whether or not another nationality comes into they don't care if another nationality comes into their grocery store, their bank. They're not even counting on that. They're counting on their people to support, and their people support. Same thing with the Jewish community. There's areas in Brooklyn with the Jewish community. They support each other. Or is it a rich community? They're rich with support from their community. Because it's not like, and I'm speaking on the Jewish community in Brooklyn, it's not like they're living much better than African Americans, but they're very smart with how they use their resources and their money. And they also are frugal, just like the Asian community. They're even more frugal than the Asian community, because some of the Asians in Flushing, you'll see them with all types of Montclair jacket on, driving Porsches, but they still prioritize other things that will allow them to afford those things. Plus, they open up businesses. They're throwing their, their laundry mats, their dry cleaners, their Chinese food restaurants, all in the hood, And we're running right in there to get our fried rice with chicken, right? Our priorities are messed up because we're still dependent on other people's businesses. I could go on and on about this topic. I just love this. This is, honestly, I'm going to tell you all, this is my favorite episode because this topic, I could go on and on and on. I can make an hour out of this. I really can. I just want to close with just saying one last thing. Aside from the fact that I'm going to repeat myself with this, we don't have time to play. We don't have time to play, and we need to stay on our A game. And you might say, well, what's the rush? What's the end time? It's not about what's the end time. I'm not saying we have to be ready by this year. I'm just saying in general, we have to get our stuff together. Yeah, enough is enough. I know for one, I don't entertain promoting the buffoonery. All right. Yes, I do. I did cover topics of hip hop and stuff like that, but this is the stuff that I'd rather cover. But we need to do the opposite of what we've been doing in the past. As I mentioned, the Asian community, they'll set up businesses in the hoods, and we're supporting it. And they're thriving. All the other nationalities are coming in, and they're running laps around us as a community. They're running laps around the black community, right? We don't own anything, but then we're shooting and killing each other, talking about that person came to my block. We're calling things our block. Jay-Z on 444 mentioned how him passing up on buying property in Dumbo, he felt like he was a Dumbo. that line may have gone over a lot of people's heads, but that line never went over my head. I said, wow. I like the fact that he was able to acknowledge that he missed up an opportunity. We're not thinking like that. We're killing each other in these neighborhoods, talking about my block and this and that. What do you own on that block? You don't own the hookah store. You don't own the laundromat. You don't even own the corner store. We haven't even gotten to the point. Some of these guys are out there, quote unquote, acting like they're making so much money in the streets, and the only thing they got to their name is that foreign car they're driving around with, and they don't even own the corner store. Now, I think some of them is trying to own barbershops and stuff like that, but as a people, if you and I'm not even condoning people doing dirt. That's not what this channel is about. But as a people, we should have been owned the corner stores. We should have been owned the laundromats. We should have had banks. Dry those little the essential places like laundromats, dry cleaners, the little small mom and pop grocery stores, slash bodegas. Those things we should have had that already as a community. But no, we let every other nationality come in, own those places, profit from us going in and out of the stores, and the only thing we care about is jumping in foreigns and moving selfishly, independently, backwards. We're backwards. But I don't want to ramble on again. I really enjoyed doing this episode. I really ran to my computer to shoot this episode. But as always, I appreciate everyone that tunes in on a nightly basis, on a daily basis. If you haven't already, like, share, subscribe, share the video, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Signing off. Honorable Men Discord. Take care.